This is Sheer Isolation. It's presented by Kieran Moore in Trowbridge and John Ponting in Cricklade. It is time for us to get on to this week's guest, who we mentioned in the opening league. It's a chap called Michael Loader, who's down Somerset Way, and he is a professional storyteller. So he goes off to schools, he goes off to festivals, goes to care homes, and his entire set is he's basically a one-man band, putting on different voices, getting the crowd involved, telling all kinds of different stories from folklore, original stuff. And just like every other musician, performer, poet in the world, he's had a year kind of sat at home not being able to do much. So we thought we'd just get in touch with him, see how he's been getting on.
I mean, I may tell traditional stories which people know around the world, or I may create stories in the moment very spontaneously with the help of people as well. Or I may, over the last sort of 5 or 6 years, I've been writing my own stories. There are lots of wonderful, lovely stories out there, but you know, sometimes when you can't find the one that you really want to tell, you think, well, it must be inside yourself. So I have been writing a lot more, and I gave myself a new task to actually not only write it, but then learn it word for word.
Oh, crikey.
It's been a bit bonkers. So I'm sort of conceiving it, writing it, editing it, learning it, performing it.
How close is writing stories to comedy? Because a lot of the time when you watch a comedian, they'll take you on a journey. They'll take you on a story. They're normally quite short stories with a punchline, but they take you on this journey and they explain, and then they get to the joke.
Yeah, I mean,
could you be a comedian?
Could I be a comedian? Well, I have made some people laugh in my life. You know, not many. I can make myself laugh quite easily when I look in the mirror. You know.
Oh, I can do that too.
But when I'm writing a story, I guess I'm thinking of giving it an emotional balance. So obviously humour, I think, really needs to come into that. I remember actually, because when I did my teacher training, well, before I did my teacher training, in my interview, back in 1983, one of the questions was, do you think it's important to bring humour into teaching? And it's like, well, of course. I mean,
was that the wrong answer?
Why wouldn't you? And if it's the wrong answer for you, it's the right answer for me. You know.
Yeah.
You know, you got to have fun, haven't you? This story I told, wrote, it's very much about a young boy. It was a bit inspired by the poetry of Ted Hughes. I really got to his poetry this year. Read a bit about his life and realised had a very, very dark life.
Yes.
But I went back to his childhood, and he had an elder brother. I'm an older brother of my younger brother, and things were starting to come out. It enabled me to go back to my childhood, so I put a bit of that into the story. I went up to Yorkshire, where Ted Hughes was born, had a little sort of walk around in his footsteps, got lost on the moors, which
lovely. I've done that.
really,
yeah, it's
really
lovely, beautiful. Amazing part of the world.
Yeah, and bringing those different elements together, and fell in love with crows as well. I don't know if you've read Ted Hughes' poetry, but he wrote a whole book about crow.
Mike, yes. I just wanted to ask you about the story that you've been learning, because I know you said that you've been learning your entire story. How long a performance have you put into your mind? How many words have you actually had to take on?
It's sort of, I could tell you, it's 5 pages of A4. I was telling it, I've sort of shortened it down, just by a sort of, it's basically 4 days, 2 days at school for this boy, and then a weekend, and then off to the moors for his adventure. On the Saturday, he has a sort of an adventure which doesn't really quite work, so he comes back. His big brother lets him down. So Saturday morning, his big brother, Jerry, says, Teddy, so how do you want to go? Do you want to go for an adventure tonight? Who wants to go camping in the woods with a fire and scary stories? Yeah, I do. I want to come. Yeah. You promise, big brother? Yeah, of course I'll promise, you know. But then he lets him down Saturday night because his elder brother goes out with his girlfriend who's changed her mind. Well, why didn't you change your mind? You would choose your girlfriend over me. I'm sorry, but you'll understand when you're older, when you've got a girlfriend. I don't want to get old, and I don't want a girlfriend. I don't want a brother like you. So he then goes off for a little sort of adventure, but doesn't get very far. His brother finds out in the morning. And then this young boy, Teddy's really sort of stoked up that I hate my brother. And I came across this idea of a song, and I think it was just coming back to your humorous thing. I don't know, it might make you laugh or may not, but Teddy goes off to his tree house with a plate full of eggs and bacon from breakfast because his brother's caught him out, saying, "So did you go to the woods and go camping?" "Yes, I did, without you as well." "Oh, that's strange, because Mum said you were in bed at 6 o'clock this morning." Teddy goes off to the treehouse, gets on his black wool hat, pulls out his black woolen scarf. Ah! Ah! And then he starts, "If you got a brother, then peck out his eyes, peck out his eyes, peck out his eyes. If you got a brother, then peck out his eyes, pick, peck, pluck." And the kids have been enjoying that,
You can't help but smile when you put those characters into actual action. You can't help but smile, can you, Kieran? It's just
no, of course not. No.
Fascinating.
There's an almost Roald Dahl-esqueness to it.
Yeah, well, yes, I love Roald Dahl's work. I did bump into him when I was actually at college down in Winchester, teacher training, and they had set him up in this sports hall on this, very tall sort of dais, plinth, and he was up on this chair, and he sort of looked like the BFG or something, and we were all lining up, and then we got closer and closer and closer, and he sort of signed the book and everything. And but yeah, I love Roald Dahl. I love that some of that sort of the monstrous characters, Trunchbull from Matilda.
Yeah.
Do you know her, the teacher?
Yeah, I know her very well.
Fantastic. So yeah, I mean, I think for this story I sort of kept it in the naturalistic world, but it sort of also inspired a bit by Teddy has a granny, and Granny is a teller of tales, of screaming banshees and barnacled whales, of adventurous daring do, all about me and all about you too. Yeah. And then she rattles off these tales at midnight, not midnight, after tea for Teddy, and he has to go to bed and check under the bed that there are no bog monsters or witches lurking underneath there.
Nice.
And yeah.
It's also not far off poetry, really, either, is it? That spoken word, that delivery, especially what you were doing just then. I almost felt a little bit of performance poetry in that as well.
Yeah, well, I've been influenced by poetry a bit more this year, and I did write a show called Dylan's Invisible Friend a couple of years ago, which we've tried to put on twice this year, but lockdown has caught us both times, so hopefully next year. But that was inspired by going down to Wales and bumping into Dylan Thomas, as you do, on the coast of Wales. So I started reading his poetry and got a flavour and a feeling for that. And that's what I like doing every time I write a new show to perform, is to bring along a new challenge for myself.
I'll come on to the final question, which was about the song that you've picked, Michael, which is Abu Samra by Zaid Hilal.
Well done. Well, nice pronunciation. Yeah.
You Googled it first, it's all right.
Yeah, I have written it down. I have written this down. I'm rubbish with pronunciation normally. Kieran always pulls me up. But you said this is a guy in Bethlehem, all right, in that part of the world, who you're a very close friend with. So tell us a story about that.
Yeah, well, a wonderful friend of mine, David Moat, who's a jazz trumpeter and plays music mainly in Bristol, but around. He got some British Council funding in 2018 to take a group over to Palestine and Israel with a show all about the Balfour Declaration, basically how the British, messed it all up. The way that we were invited and welcomed and looked after was quite extraordinary. And
really,
people would ask, where are you from? England, Britain, British, whatever. And you sort of wait and wonder what's going to happen. But, their politeness was extraordinary. And and Zaid was part of the project. We met him over there in 2018. He came back 2018 for a tour, and then came back in 2019. I went back 2019 with a sort of a story gathering project to really, because we took a show the first time, so it's very much us, sort of giving to them, as it were. But the second year, I thought, there are so many stories to bring back about, what is really going on, which is, it's beyond words. It's beyond words, really. It's unreal. It's unreal.
The song itself is quite a somber sounding song, isn't it? It's quite slow and somber.
Yes. Well, this was inspired by a meeting with a woman called Vivienne Sansur, and she's somebody who has this heirloom seed bank. So she's trying to preserve and reuse all the original sort of old Arabic seeds, etc., because with new technology coming in and new ways of buying things, it's like that, like Amazon will rule the world type of thing. The only things you can buy are what we've got. Yeah. So she was out there to really save some stuff. She told us a story all about this seed called Abu Samra, a wheat, and Abu Samra is actually personified as sort of a striking man with tall black hair, and the wheat variety has this sort of these white black fronds on it. So there's a whole story she told us. Zaid was there, we were chipping in, he was thinking, right, and then she and he got together, created more and more and more, and then he created this song which he has performed over here. And my goodness, I was listening to it today, and I have to hold back the tears or not hold back the tears, because the passion in his song is extraordinary. And the story is that the Abu Samra seed was lost, and this Vivienne actually found it again from some farmers. So it's back being ploughed into the land again now.
Amazing.
أبو سمراء يا أبو عيون الكحلة، غيابك والله معذبنا. أيام الماضي وستي وخبزاته اللي ما في من أحلى. يا أبو سمراء يا أبو عيون الكحلة، غيابك والله معذبنا. أيام الماضي وستي وخبزاته اللي ما في من أحلى. إذا الأمل محجوب والشمس بتموت والطير سجين حزين، أبو سمرة فينا موجود. إذا الطفل بجوع والشر بسود والحكي صار بارود، أبو سمرة فينا موجود. إذا الأمل محجوب والشمس بتموت والطير سجين حزين، أبو سمرة فينا موجود. إذا الطفل بجوع والشر بسود والحكي صار بارود، أبو سمرة فينا موجود. أبو سمرة والله معذبنا. أيام الماضي وستي وخبزاتها اللي ما فيه من أحلام. إذا الدمع محبوس والدم ملموس والخوف كبر عجوز، أبو سمرة فينا موجود. إذا الحبيب بعيد ولا سر ضمير ولا من سره عميل، أبو سمرة فينا موجود.